Do you ever notice how love can feel like a promise written in the sky? But when the wind changes, you realize it was written in sand. That was me. I thought I had forever. Turns out forever had a deadline. I was married 25 years, raised 2 kids, worked sun up to sundown, never complained. I thought loyalty was louder than money. She started changing slow. The hair, the new perfume, the long work dinners. I told myself it was stress. We were older now. People change. But then came the night she didn't come home. And that silence broke something in me I didn't know could break. Next morning she walked in calm as still water, said she was moving out, said she needed space. I asked if there was someone else. She didn't answer. Didn't have to. I helped her pack, folded her clothes with the same hands that built her life, watched her drive away in the car I paid for. And I just stood there, watching the dust settle. That was the night I learned. Sometimes love leaves you before the person does. Now I know this sounds heavy, but hold on. Because what happened next changed everything. You see, she thought I was broke. She thought the business went under when I sold my name. But that was just the surface story. And underneath, quiet as the deep ocean, something else was waiting. So if you've ever been left behind, if you've ever been told you're not enough, stay right here. Because this one's for you. I met her when I was 26. She was sunshine with sharp edges, beautiful and restless. I was calm and steady, the kind of man who'd rather fix the fence than talk about feelings. We built a life the old-fashioned way, scraping, saving, dreaming. I started a small construction business, worked my way up from 1 truck to 50, but around year 20, the world changed. Big corporations started swallowing small contractors. I sold my company name to one of them, made it look like I walked away with nothing. But what she didn't know was that I kept the holding company that owned the equipment, the land, and half the patents. That money went offshore, not for greed, for protection. I wanted peace, not bragging rights. She always said I was boring, said I didn't know how to live. Meanwhile, I was building something invisible, something strong enough to last beyond both of us. When she met her new boss, he looked like success. Designer suits, smooth talk, fake confidence. She was dazzled. I remember the night she told me it was over. She said, "I can't live with someone who's given up." I looked at her and said, "I haven't given up. I've just stopped pretending." She took everything visible, the house, the car, even the dog. And I let her, because what she couldn't take was what she didn't know existed. I moved into a quiet cabin by the lake, woke up before sunrise, drank my coffee slow. For the first time in years, I felt free. Now, I didn't plan revenge. That's not my nature. But sometimes, life has its own way of setting the record straight. And one day, it did. But that part, that's where the storm begins, and the truth comes out. It was about 6 months after she left. I had settled into quiet living, chopping wood, reading old books, talking to the lake like it could listen. Then one morning, a letter came from the bank. Her name was still tied to some of our old assets, things I hadn't gotten around to closing. The paper said her new address, the same company building her boss owned. I sat there staring at that line, and for a moment, I almost laughed, because sometimes life doesn't just close circles, it ties them in a knot. You see, that company, the one her boss bragged about running, was part of a bigger network, and tucked inside that network was my holding firm, quiet, invisible, but still there. That's when I realized she was now working for me, without even knowing it. At first, I didn't want to look deeper, but curiosity is a funny thing. I called my old lawyer, told him to pull the books. He sent me the reports. And there it was in black and white, the same firm name, same parent company, same structure I had built years ago. She hadn't just left me. She had walked right back under my shadow. Now listen, I didn't feel triumph. Not at first. I felt sad, because she was chasing something she already had. She thought wealth meant showing it. I thought wealth meant sleeping peacefully at night. Months passed, and I kept my distance. But one day, I got a call from the board. They wanted me to come back for an executive review. Turns out the company was struggling, and the boss she ran off with wasn't the leader they thought he was. So I showed up, wore my old work boots, drove my rusty truck, walked through those glass doors like a ghost from the past. The receptionist froze. She knew me from years ago. She whispered, "I thought you retired." I said, "Just taking a long nap." When I stepped into that boardroom, you could feel the air change. Her boss sat there, slick hair, fake grin, and beside him, her Python seat, and she looked at me like she'd seen a ghost. The chairman introduced me as the original founder and majority silent partner. Her boss's smile cracked like thin ice. I didn't gloat, didn't raise my voice. I just looked at the numbers, gave my report, and said, "We're restructuring ownership." Effective immediately. Silence. You could hear hearts beating through suits. When I left that room, I didn't look back. I didn't have to. That was the day the storm broke, and everything she thought she understood started to fall apart. Now, before we move forward, let me tell you something. If you've ever been betrayed, don't rush revenge. Let patience do the heavy lifting, because when truth walks into the room, it doesn't need to shout. It just stands there, and everything false collapses on its own. The next chapter, that's when the real reckoning came, and she realized who she'd truly left. Not the broke husband, but the man behind the curtain. Stay with me, because that one changes everything. It was a month after that board meeting, when the first ripple hit. I was back at my cabin, splitting wood, feeling lighter than I had in years, when the phone rang. It was the company HR director. She said the new manager had been terminated, and there were questions about the accounting. I knew what that meant, but I kept my voice steady, told her to follow protocol, and thanked her for the call. 2 days later, news spread across the local business paper. The article said the regional director was under investigation, and the headline named her boss. I sat there staring at that paper, coffee in hand. Wind moving through the trees outside, and all I could think was, life doesn't always punish. It reveals. That week, she called me for the first time in almost a year. Her voice was soft, tired. She said she didn't know who else to turn to. I could hear the fear in her tone, the kind that lives behind pride. She said, "They froze our accounts. They say there's been fraud. I might lose everything." I didn't say anything for a long time, just listened, because sometimes listening hurts more than words ever could. Finally, I said, "I'm sorry you're going through that." And she said, "You sound different." I told her, maybe I just stopped pretending. She wanted to meet. So we met at a small diner, halfway between the lake and the city. She walked in wearing that same old confidence, but her eyes told the truth. They were tired, wet around the edges, like someone had been holding back tears for too long. She sat down, looked at me, and said, "I made a mistake. I thought I was chasing happiness, but I was chasing noise." I didn't gloat, didn't remind her of what she'd said. I just nodded and told her, sometimes we have to lose what's fake before we can see what's real. She asked if I still hated her, and I said, I never did. Hate's too heavy to carry around all day, and I've got work to do. She told me her boss had been using company funds, making fake contracts, living big until the books caught up. Now she was caught in the middle, and might be charged too, even though she didn't touch a thing. I knew she was telling the truth. She might have left me, but she wasn't a thief. She just wanted a life that looked easier, so I made a decision right there in that diner. I told her, "You need to come clean to the board. Tell them everything, and I'll make sure you're protected." She didn't understand what I meant. Not yet. The next week, I called the board, told them I'd reviewed the audit, and found no evidence linking her to the fraud. Then I reinstated her under a new department, reporting directly to me, When she walked into my office that first morning, the look on her face was something I'll never forget. She said, "Why are you doing this?" I told her, "Because forgiveness is the strongest kind of freedom." She sat down, looked around the room, saw my name on the plaque, and whispered, "You own all of this, don't you?" I smiled. "Not all of it, just enough to stay invisible." Her eyes filled up, and she said, "All this time I thought you were small. I didn't know you built the ground I was standing on." I told her it didn't matter anymore. What mattered was who we both became after the truth showed up. For the next few months, she worked hard, quiet, humble, and I saw the woman I'd once loved, without the noise of ambition clouding her up. We didn't talk about the past. We just worked. Sometimes side by side, like old friends who shared too many memories to count. And you know what? One day she said something that stayed with me. She said, "I used to think power was owning things. Now I think power is sleeping at night with peace in your chest." That line, it hit deep, because she finally understood. When the investigation ended, her boss lost everything. The papers said he'd defrauded investors out of $8 million. He went down fast, and when he did, she stood taller than I'd ever seen her. No makeup, no show, just truth. That night, she stopped by the cabin, brought me pie like she used to, and said, "I don't expect anything. I just needed to thank you." We sat on the porch, listened to the crickets, and for the first time in years, there was no anger between us, just two people who'd finally learned the cost of pretending. Now listen, if you're hearing this, and you've ever been left, betrayed, or made to feel small, remember this part. You don't have to prove your worth by shouting. Just keep your peace. Do your work, and let time pull the curtain back, because truth always finds its way home. After that night on the porch, life got quiet again, the kind of quiet that feels earned, not empty. I kept working part-time, mostly mentoring the younger folks at the company, teaching them how to build things that last longer than the paycheck, how to treat people as investments, not expenses. She stayed on too. Different role, different rhythm. She wasn't chasing status anymore. She was chasing balance, and it showed in her face. The tightness was gone. The restless spark had turned into calm light. Sometimes she'd stop by the cabin after work, bring soup or bread. We'd sit by the fire, talk about the old days, and then drift into silence, the comfortable kind that doesn't need filling. One evening she said, "I still don't understand how you could forgive me." And I told her, because forgiveness isn't about them. It's about not letting bitterness rent space in your soul. She nodded slow and whispered, "I wish I'd known that sooner. There were moments I saw the woman I first married, but this time I didn't cling to it. I had learned something too, that love doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it just means peace between two stories that used to share a roof." Around that time, the company started turning around, new projects, new people. And a few of the old crew asked if I'd ever fully come back. I said no, because I'd already found what I was chasing, and it wasn't in any boardroom. I spent my mornings walking the lake trail, watching the mist lift like a curtain. I'd think about all the years I chased success, and all the years she chased security, and how both of us were wrong in our own ways. One day I got a letter, not from her, but from my daughter. She said Mom told me everything. She said she finally understands what she lost, and she told me, "Dad, I'm proud of you for not becoming what hurt you." That letter, that one broke me open a little, in the best way, because you spend a lifetime trying to be strong, and sometimes the greatest strength is letting the next generation see your scars without shame. I went to visit my daughter that weekend. She had kids of her own now, and when I held my grandbaby, something inside me healed. All that old ache just melted away. We sat on the porch swing, and she asked, "Do you ever wish Mom and you could start over?" I smiled, took a deep breath, and said, "No, 'cause if we did, we'd never learn what we know now." And that's the truth of life right there. You can't skip the hurt and still expect the wisdom. You gotta walk through both. A few months later, she told me she was moving to another state. Wanted to start fresh. New city, new home, a new chapter. And I told her I was proud of her for not running from the past. But walking past it, she hugged me goodbye at the office and said, "Thank you for seeing the best in me when I couldn't." I told her, that's what love does when it grows up. After she left, I went back to my cabin, sat on the porch with the sun going down, and realized something powerful. I hadn't just survived betrayal. I had outgrown it. You see, people think revenge is the ending, but it's not. Peace is, because peace means the story no longer owns you. When you can look at someone who broke you and wish them well anyway, that's when you know you've truly won. And listen, that doesn't mean you forget. Forgiveness isn't memory loss. It's emotional release. It's saying, I remember exactly what happened, and I'm still free. That freedom, that's what money can't buy. That's the real wealth I'd been building all along. The offshore accounts, the companies, the assets, they were just tools. The real treasure was learning how to live light again. Sometimes when the moon's full, I still see her face in my mind, not the young version, not the broken one, just the real person she became after everything fell apart. And I whisper, we did all right after all. I finish my coffee, close my eyes, and thank the silence for teaching me more than success ever did. So if you're listening now, and you're holding anger like a shield, set it down for a while. Let time do its work, because peace isn't weakness. Peace is the final form of strength. And one day, you'll wake up and realize the story you thought ruined you was actually the one that built you, piece by piece, until you became someone whole again. Years passed after she moved away, and life found its rhythm again. I still worked with my hands, fixed fences, helped neighbors with roofs after storms, because no matter how far you go in business, the real work is what you do when no one is watching. I'd visit my daughter and grandkids every month, watch them grow, listen to their laughter echo down the hallway. That sound, that's the only currency that ever holds its value. Every so often a letter would come from her, short notes mostly, about her new garden, about the town she settled in, about how she finally slept through the night again. I never expected those letters, but every time one arrived, I'd sit by the fire, read it slow, and feel something warm, like forgiveness still growing roots even years later. One day she wrote, "You were right. Peace is the only thing worth protecting." That line stayed with me, because for the first time, we spoke the same language. I think people misunderstand stories like this. They expect fireworks, revenge, big endings, but life doesn't always work like movies. Real closure is quiet. It's drinking your morning coffee without bitterness in your mouth. It's hearing their name and not flinching anymore. There's a kind of justice that doesn't come from courts or payback. It comes from knowing you didn't lose yourself. That's the victory most folks overlook. I remember one evening, my grandson asked me, "Grandpa, what's the hardest thing you ever did?" And I told him, learning how to stay kind when the world gave me every reason not to. He looked up, confused, and said, "But isn't kindness just being nice?" And I smiled. "No, son. Kindness is strength with gentleness wrapped around it. It's what turns pain into wisdom instead of walls. When you get older, you realize love isn't just romance. It's how you show up when life tests you. It's how you stay soft in a world that wants to harden you. And that's why I tell these stories, not because I enjoy looking back, but because I want you to see yourself in them, so you don't have to learn everything the hard way like I did. Every scar I've got came with a lesson, and every lesson built a bridge from who I was to who I finally became. Sometimes I sit on the dock at sunset, watch the water turn gold, and I whisper to the wind, "Thank you for not giving me what I wanted, but giving me what I needed instead." That's what life does when you let it breathe. It trades your plans for peace and your pride for perspective. Now, if you're still here listening, I want you to remember something important. When someone walks away, it's not always punishment. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes it's the universe clearing your path, so you can finally see where you were meant to go. Don't chase what left you. Bless it. Release it. Then build something beautiful where the hole used to be. That's the real revenge. Building a life so honest, you don't have to hide from your own reflection. And if that means living smaller, simpler, quieter, then so be it. Because peace will always outshine applause. Every time I finish one of these stories, someone writes to me and says, "Harry, how did you stay gentle through all that?" And I tell them the same thing every time. Because the moment you let bitterness win, the person who hurt you keeps owning a piece of your heart. I'd rather give my heart to something that grows, like family, like friendship, like peace. So if you're going through something right now, maybe you've been left, or betrayed, or made to feel invisible, listen close. You are not broken. You're just being remade. And one day, when the dust settles, you'll look back and realize this was the chapter that built your backbone. You'll see how strong silence can be, how healing forgiveness truly is, and how good it feels to sleep at night knowing you didn't lose yourself. That's what I want for you. Not revenge, not validation, just peace that stays. Now, if this story found you at the right time, don't let it stop here. There are more stories waiting for you, about family, about justice, about the quiet power we all carry. So come sit with me again next time, and we'll keep walking through these lessons together. Because life isn't about who leaves, it's about who stays true. And I'll be right here, telling the truth, one story at a time, until the next one finds you. If you're still here, then maybe this story found the part of you that needed it most. And if it did, don't let it end when the screen fades. Stay with me, because every week I sit right here and tell another story about people like us. Folks who've been knocked down, hurt, left behind, and still found a way to stand back up again. So hit that follow button if you haven't yet. Not for me, but for you, so you don't forget how strong quiet hearts can be. The next story, it's about a son who thought his father was just a broke mechanic, until the day the truth about those old cars changed his whole world. That one's coming soon, and you won't want to miss it. Until then, keep your peace, keep your kindness, and remember, the best revenge is a life lived gentle and free. I'm Grandpa Harry, and I'll see you next time by the fire.